I'm grateful to be here. I was always a fiercely independent middle child that never understood the idea of working with others until much later in life. I was talented, tenacious, and for as long as I can remember, I wanted to be a performer. School didn't know what to do with me, and to be honest, I didn't really know what to do with school. In 10th grade, I was suspended for playing guitar during study hall and decided to write a protest song to the principal about suppressing my freedom of expression. I then took it upon myself to play that song over and over and over again in the front lobby outside the principal's office. Yeah, I was expelled by the end of the first week. But I'm grateful for that moment of creative confidence because it stuck with me. College was a continued frustration. I went to Berklee School of Music, and I kept saying to myself that I wanted to be playing my songs for people instead of grades. So I dropped out after my first year. I moved home. I bought an '89 Toyota Camry with 250,000 miles on it and drove it around the country with my friend Ryan, playing every open mic, smoky dive bar, bar mitzvah, club, and house concert that would have us. I wanted more than my small town of 1,000 people could offer and was terrified of what might happen if I inherited the same zip code as my parents and friends. I had no plan B, just the maniacally focused voice of a hot-headed 18-year-old. I booked and performed 300-plus shows a year for 3 years straight, built a following, and developed a love of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I was a college dropout taking courses from the boom and rattle of my car stereo as I worked on my degree in Joni Mitchell, Bruce Springsteen, and Jackson Browne. I was born to run, running on empty, and looking for a river I could skate away on. This is a photo from one of my very first performances. I'm 6 years old. I'm in a leopard print onesie with a fur mink slung over my neck. I have blue and pink curlers in my hair, and I'm playing a palm tree painted ukulele with one string on it for whatever collection of relatives I could gather around at the time. I see this photo and I see a suit of armor. I see a kid so starved for attention that he was going to go look for it almost anywhere. But the life I have now is due in large part to the tenacity of this little boy. He created a new reality for himself and those willing to watch his performances. Somehow he knew if you keep kicking the darkness, eventually it'll bleed daylight. I've been thinking a lot about gratitude and the things I'm grateful for in my life, and what I've discovered is that the things I'm most grateful for are the things that have caused me the most anger, frustration, and pain. My gratitude is not a state of peace or arrival, but rather a bitter battle for balance and reason. Anyone who knows me well knows that my older brother, Jamie, is a huge component of my life. Jamie was born with autism and a severe seizure disorder called Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. My parents' focus towards me was oftentimes distracted by the very immediate needs of my older brother. My home was a revolving door of nurses, physical therapists, and social workers, and I never understood how vulnerable we were until recently. The fragility of my mother's patience or my father's sobriety. Structure was a state of chaos and confusion followed by acceptance. By the age of 14, my duty was to get my brother showered, dressed, and give him breakfast each morning before I'd catch the bus to school. Every morning, urine-soaked bedsheets, the smell of feces, and a twitchy older brother would turn to a load of laundry, cheesy scrambled eggs for breakfast, and a smiling Jamie as he'd take his anti-convulsive medication. There was daily transformation. In just an hour and a half, both his environment and our relationship would transform from care provider and care receiver to two brothers hanging out listening to music. In this transformation, my anger and jealousy over his attention was replaced by a new sense of service towards him. To this day, no one has taught me more about communication than my nonverbal brother. In his own way, he taught me the art of listening, how to hear what not saying says by reading body language and gestures, every posturing of the shoulder or darting of the eyes. Life is so much more colorful when we're listening. He taught me that when you can't be the poet, you can still be the poem, and he remains my greatest non-musical musical influence. One thing that's real clear to me is that people can only take on so much. My parents dedicated their lives to looking after my brother, but 30 years of care providing ripped their marriage apart, and it forced me to take on some responsibilities that most 20-somethings don't have to take on. When I was 22, I became Jamie's legal guardian, and during their divorce, my parents made many decisions that I disagreed with. My role as Jamie's guardian changed overnight to one where I was constantly being propelled to the front lines to defend, protect, and advocate for my brother, while my parents navigated their separation with resentment and lawyers. I made it my daily task to shield Jamie from the shrapnel of my parents' covert war. Divorce rarely has a positive effect on kids, but it can be unbearably cruel on those that can't advocate for themselves. Now, I've heard the formula for comedy is tragedy plus time. Perhaps the same is true with gratitude. At the time, my parents' divorce was chaos, and I certainly wasn't sitting back going, "This is great, I'm learning a valuable lesson here." But the truth is, I learned about my parents as human beings. I learned about their fears, their vulnerabilities, and their failures. I also learned more about disability law than anybody would need to know because I had to. I learned that compassion is always stronger than force. I learned that it's not enough to just be right. And more importantly, I learned how to be wrong. In a way, I learned how to lead. This past September, I was in New York City writing songs. I stepped out to check my phone. The message said that Jamie was in the hospital having 200 seizures an hour that they couldn't stop. What doctors like to do when someone is having status seizures is they induce a coma for 48 hours in the hope that it can essentially reboot the brain. Over the course of 6 weeks, they did this 5 times with no change. And as I sat by Jamie's bedside at Boston General Hospital, I thought a lot about the difference between the witness and the sickness. The seizure disorder had taken every sign of the brother I knew away. The brother I learned from while giving him breakfast. The brother I shielded and loved was no longer there. The sickness was all that I saw. The next day, we decided to make the switch to comfort care, and I'll never forget explaining to my dad that with his current level of sedation and the amount of seizure activity brewing just underneath it, he wasn't going to be able to say goodbye to his son in a way for him to cognitively understand. So with his family around him, the nurses took out his breathing tube, and I don't know what I was expecting, but it didn't happen right away. It took about an hour and a half, and in that hour and a half, there was complete transformation. Jamie had a way of doing that. It gave me time to stop counting the space between each breath. It gave time for my sister to smile again. It gave time for my mother to stop crying, and it gave time for my dad to climb into bed with him and get where he's always been, right by Jamie's side. I'm grateful for that time. I've spent half of my life so far as Jamie's care provider, and a good portion of it as his legal guardian. His death gave me the simplicity and honor of being his brother again. And I'm really grateful for that. Since this photo was taken, I've given over 2,000 performances. And the one thing I've learned in the performing arts is that quite often things fall apart. They don't go the way you intended, and you can't stop the show. Sometimes you push through only to find that your most vulnerable moment was the most memorable. I didn't expect my brother to die or my parents to split up, but that happened. And in time, my denial has turned into acceptance. My confusion transforms into clarity. Gratitude makes sense of our past and gives us a vision for tomorrow. I'm going to invite my friends Ryan and Joe out here, and we're going to leave you guys with a song. Thank you so much for listening. One, two. Flesh and bone in a world his own, he's different from the rest. Born the first of 3, never took the lead. Parents did their best. Told fairy tales in bed. His own story never said. He used to ride the short bus to school each day. With a brother's eye, I watched every bruise break his way. Said he's just like everyone, but he's not like anyone. Waiting on a sign, praying to break through when nothing else can speak for you. Love is a language we hang on to. Keeps her trouble in her chest, every breath is saying things will be alright. Two strangers in a house, he's a sleeper on the couch every night. Alright. Dad traded booze for caffeine. Mom keeps his calories clean. Hey, waiting on a sign, praying to break through when nothing else can speak for you. Love is a language we hang on to. Everyone wants proof. No one wants the truth. Waiting on a sign, praying to break through when nothing else can speak for you. Love is a language we hang on to.